The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss. Greg Collins stepped out, holding a small clear box close to his chest. He blinked as his eyes got used to the bright lights of the Galactic Academy of Xenobiology. All around him, alien students from hundreds of worlds moved through the grand arrival hall. Some had scales, others had fur. Some floated above the ground while others crawled on many legs. Greg was one of only 2 humans at the Academy this year. Earth had just been invited to join, and many alien species still thought humans were far behind them. Greg knew he had to show them what Earth life could do. The box in Greg's hands held his contribution to the Academy's live specimen collection. Unlike the large, scary creatures other students brought, Greg's specimen was very small. Inside the clear container sat a jumping spider no bigger than a coin. Its tiny body was covered in fuzzy black hair, and its 8 eyes looked around with what seemed like real curiosity. "You brought that?" A voice came from behind Greg. He turned to see a tall, blue-skinned student with 6 arms crossing all of them across his chest. This was Vexilor, from a star system near Orion. His hard outer skin shone under the lights as he looked down at Greg's container. "Even by human standards, that's sad," Vexilor said with a laugh. Greg didn't get upset. He was used to this. "This is a bold jumping spider," he explained calmly. "One of Earth's best hunters." Vexilor made a sound like a snort. "My world's smallest hunters could eat that in one bite." More alien students gathered around, drawn by Vexilor's loud voice. They peered at the tiny spider with what Greg could only guess was alien amusement. "What can it do?" asked a student with green skin and eyes on stalks. "It looks too small to hunt anything but bugs." "Size isn't everything in nature," Greg said. "Sometimes the best hunters are the ones you don't see coming." A rumble of what might have been laughter spread through the group. Then the crowd parted as a much larger figure pushed through. This new alien was nearly 2 heads taller than Greg. His skin was thick and gray with deep scars that formed patterns across his chest and arms. He had 4 muscular arms, each ending in hands with sharp claws. This was Dravnak, a Klaxian combat student and the top fighter at the Academy. "Is this Earth's mighty hunter?" Dravnak's voice was deep and made Greg's chest vibrate. "On my world, we step on things like this and don't notice." Greg looked up at the much larger student. "Then your world might be missing some amazing things by not looking down more often." Dravnak leaned closer. "The Klaxian Empire took over 12 star systems with our war beasts. Your pet would be food for our youngest fighters. Yet here we both are at the same school," Greg said with a smile. "Seems like the Council thinks Earth has something to offer." Dravnak's skin darkened. A sign Greg had learned meant anger in his species. Before things could get worse, a soft chime rang through the arrival hall. "All students, please proceed." To the welcome area, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. A tall, thin figure glided toward the group. Professor Zix, the Academy's director, moved without seeming to touch the floor. Her body was mostly see-through, with swirling colors moving beneath her skin. She had no face that Greg could see, just a bright spot where a head should be. "I see our Earth students have arrived," Professor Zix said. Her words didn't come from a mouth but seemed to form directly in Greg's mind. "Welcome to the most elite learning place in the known universe." She looked at the container in Greg's hands. "Ah, you've brought an arachnid specimen. Excellent choice. Earth's joint-legged hunters have some of the most efficient predation rates per body mass in your planet's ecosystems." Greg felt a wave of relief that at least someone here understood. "It's very small," Dravnak said with obvious disrespect. Professor Zix turned to the Klaxian student. "All specimens, no matter their size or origin, deserve our scientific respect," she said. "Many of our greatest discoveries came from the study of life forms that seemed simple at first glance." Dravnak stepped back, clearly not willing to argue with the director. "Mr. Collins," Professor Zix continued, "please take your Earth specimen to Habitat Section E12 for placement. Our welcome meeting begins in 1 hour in the main hall." As the professor glided away, Greg heard more whispers and laughs from the alien students. "Make sure it doesn't escape," one called out. "We might step on it by mistake." Greg walked away from the group, following the signs to the habitat section. As he walked, a voice called out to him, "Don't let them get to you." Greg turned to see the only other human at the academy, Lena Patel. She carried her own specimen container with a colorful sea slug inside. "I'm used to it," Greg said. "People underestimate spiders on Earth too." Lena fell into step beside him. "They're going to be surprised when they see what Earth life can do. These aliens think bigger is always better." "That's their mistake," Greg said. "Earth had to get clever with its solutions. Our gravity, our crowded ecosystems. They all pushed life to become smart, not just strong." They reached the habitat section, a huge room filled with containers of all sizes. Some held massive creatures that paced back and forth. Others contained things Greg couldn't even describe. As Greg set up his spider's new home, he could feel the eyes of other students on him. He didn't mind. He knew what his tiny spider could do. "I think I'll call her Penny," he said quietly to Lena. "You named your research specimen?" Lena asked with surprise. Greg smiled. "Why not? She's going to change how the galaxy sees Earth." Lena looked doubtful. "That's a lot to put on one small spider." "Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest difference," Greg said as he watched Penny explore her new home. "And I have a feeling these aliens are about to learn that the hard way." As they left the habitat section to attend the welcome meeting, neither of them noticed Dravnak watching from the shadows, his eyes fixed on the tiny Earth spider with growing interest. "So small," he muttered to himself. "Yet the human seems so sure of its worth. Perhaps there will be a way to test this creature's skills against a real hunter." Greg and Lena walked toward the main hall, unaware that Penny the spider would soon be at the center of a contest that would change how the entire academy viewed Earth and its life forms. 2 weeks passed at the Galactic Academy. Greg spent his days in classes about life forms from across the stars. Every day, he visited Penny in the habitat section to check on her and make sure she had fresh water and food. Many alien students still laughed when they saw Greg talking to his tiny spider. They could not understand why anyone would bring such a small creature to the academy when others had brought huge hunting beasts and deadly predators. "The predator showcase will start tomorrow," Lena told Greg as they ate lunch in the busy food hall. "Are you going to enter, Penny?" Greg nodded. "I already signed up. I think it's time to show everyone what Earth spiders can do." From across the room, Dravnak watched the two humans. The big Klaxian student had spent the past week showing off his war beast, a scaled creature called a gorn. The gorn was knee-high with sharp claws and teeth that could break bones. Everyone at the academy was sure it would win the showcase. "You know Dravnak will be there with his gorn," Lena said, looking worried. "That thing ate a live test animal in 3 seconds in biology class yesterday." Greg shrugged. "Penny doesn't need to be the biggest. She just needs to show what makes Earth hunter special." That night, Greg sat in his room watching Penny move around in a small practice box he had made. The jumping spider seemed to study everything, turning to look at movement and planning her jumps with care. "Tomorrow's the big day," Greg said to the spider. "Time to show them what Earth can do." The next day, the academy's main room was filled with students and teachers. Large screens showed close-up views of each habitat where the hunting creatures would show their skills. Professor Zix floated at the front of the room. "Welcome to our yearly predator showcase," she said, her words flowing into everyone's minds. "Today, students will show the hunting skills of their world's predators. We will judge not just on kills, but on skill, planning, and use of natural gifts." The showcase began. One by one, students showed off their predators. A snake-like creature. From the water world, Aquarius caught fish with amazing speed. A plant thing from Verdant trapped flying bugs in sticky vines. Each got polite claps from the crowd. Then it was Dravnak's turn. The big Klaxian stepped up looking very sure of himself. "My gorn is from the fighting pits of Klaxia Prime," he said loudly. "For 10,000 years we have bred them to be the perfect hunters." The gorn was placed in a large test area with high walls. 5 small animal targets were set loose inside. What happened next made many students gasp. The Gorn moved with shocking speed for its size. It did not waste time or energy. Each move was perfect as it caught and killed all 5 targets in less than a minute. When it was done, the Gorn stood in the middle of the test area looking ready for more. Impressive use of speed and power, Professor Zix said. The Klaxian breeding program has created a very good hunter. Dravnak smiled with all his sharp teeth showing. No other creature here can match the Gorn's kills. Next, from Earth, Greg Collins will show the hunting skills of a jumping spider, Professor Zix announced. A wave of laughs moved through the crowd. After seeing the Gorn's power, how could anyone take the tiny spider seriously? Greg stepped up to the front. He could hear the whispers and laughs, but he didn't let them bother him. For this test, I want to show not just hunting, but problem solving, Greg said. Jumping spiders don't just react, they think and plan. Penny was placed in a test area that had many levels, with small platforms and hiding spots. Several small insects were set loose, each about the same size as the spider. The room went quiet as everyone watched the screens. At first, nothing happened. Penny sat still, her tiny head moving as her 8 eyes looked around the test area. Then, instead of just running at the nearest bug, she began to climb. "What is it doing?" a student asked. "She's finding the best spot," Greg explained. Jumping spiders are ambush hunters. They study their prey and plan their attack. From her high spot, Penny watched one of the insects move along a lower platform. Then, with amazing aim, she jumped. The jump covered a distance many times her body length. She landed right on the insect and quickly caught it. But what happened next surprised everyone. Instead of staying to eat, Penny left the caught bug and climbed back up. Again she waited, watched, and jumped with perfect aim to catch another bug. "Look at the calculation in each jump," Professor Zix said, sounding impressed. "The spider is measuring distance, accounting for the movement of the prey, and using the least energy possible for each hunt." By the time Penny had caught all 5 of her targets, many students had stopped laughing. Some were leaning forward in their seats, watching with real interest. "Earth creatures show very good brain power for their size," Professor Zix said. "This spider has the most hunting skill per body size we have seen today." Dravnak stepped forward, clearly not happy that the tiny spider was getting praise. "Catching bugs is not impressive," he said loudly. "Any real predator should face worthy prey." Professor Zix turned to Dravnak. "An interesting point. Perhaps we could see these 2 specimens face each other?" The room went completely quiet. Then excited whispers broke out. A direct contest between 2 predators was rare at the academy. "Are you suggesting my Gorn should fight the Earth bug?" Dravnak asked, then laughed. "It would be over in 1 second." "I accept," Greg said calmly. Everyone turned to look at him with surprise. "You would risk your specimen?" Professor Zix asked. Greg nodded. "I have one rule. The test area must have high spots and places to climb. That's not an advantage. It's just the spider's normal hunting ground." Dravnak's face showed his confidence. "It doesn't matter. My Gorn will crush your spider no matter where they fight." "Then it's decided," Professor Zix announced. "Tomorrow we will see a direct contest between the Klaxian Gorn and the earth-jumping spider." As students left the room, they were all talking about the coming match. No one thought the tiny spider had any chance against the war beast. Betting started with the odds heavily against Penny. Greg walked back to his room feeling the eyes of every student on him. Some looked at him like he was crazy. Others seemed to feel sorry for him. Lena caught up with him in the hallway. "Are you sure about this? The Gorn could eat Penny in 1 bite." Greg smiled. "Things aren't always what they seem. Penny has some tricks no one here has seen yet." Back in his room, Greg looked at his tiny spider friend. "Tomorrow's the real test," he said. "Time to show the galaxy that on Earth the small things can be the most deadly." That night, Greg sat in his room making changes to the test box that would hold the big match. He added small sticks that went up to different heights and tiny places where Penny could hide. He wanted to make sure the space had everything his spider would need. Penny was in a small travel box on his desk. She seemed to watch Greg work, turning her tiny body to follow his hands. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, Greg said to Penny. No one believes a spider your size can beat a war beast, but they don't know what you can do. A soft knock came at his door. When it opened, Lena stepped in looking worried. The whole academy is talking about tomorrow, she said. I've never seen the alien students so excited. They all think Dravnak will win easily. Greg kept working on the test box. Let them think that. It's better if no one knows what's coming. Lena sat down on the edge of Greg's bed. I've been reading about Klaxian Gorns. They have thick skin that can stop most attacks. Their sense of smell is very good, and they can see heat from warm bodies. I don't see how Penny can win. Greg turned to look at her. Do you know what makes Earth special? Our gravity is strong, which means our animals had to get very good at using less energy. Our planet has so many different living things that predators had to get smart to find food. He pointed to Penny. Jumping spiders have the best eyes of almost any spider. They can see color, movement, and depth. They plan before they attack, and they have something else most people forget. What's that? Lena asked. Venom, Greg said. Jumping spider venom is meant to stop bugs, not hurt people. But no one knows what it might do to a Gorn. Lena looked at the tiny spider with new respect. Do you really think she can win? Greg shook his head. I don't need her to win. I just need her to show that Earth life is special in its own way. To prove that being small doesn't mean being weak. Late that night, as Greg was about to go to sleep, there was another knock at his door. When he opened it, he was shocked to see Professor Zix floating in the hallway. May I come in? The teacher asked in her mind voice. Yes, of course, Greg said, stepping back. Professor Zix glided into the room. Her see-through body glowed softly in the dim light. I wanted to speak with you about tomorrow's match, she said. There is still time to back out. No one would blame you. Greg shook his head. I'm not backing out. Penny deserves a chance to show what Earth predators can do. Professor Zix moved closer to the desk where Penny sat in her box. I have studied the life of many worlds, Mr. Collins. In my years, I have learned that the most interesting solutions often come from the most pressed places. Worlds with hard living make tough creatures. She turned to look at Greg. Earth has very strong gravity and many living things fighting for space. This has made your world's life forms use some tricks we haven't seen elsewhere. That's what I've been trying to tell everyone, Greg said. Be careful tomorrow, Professor Zix warned. Dravnak is from a proud warrior culture. He will not take it well if his beast is beaten by a tiny earth spider. After the teacher left, Greg felt even more sure about his choice. Even Professor Zix seemed to think Penny had a chance. The next morning, the academy's main hall was more full than Greg had ever seen it. Students from all classes had come to watch the match. Some had even brought friends from outside the school. News about the strange contest had spread far. In the middle of the hall, a large clear box had been set up. It was built using Greg's plans, with flat open space on the bottom and many sticks and levels going up. The walls were high enough that nothing could jump out. Greg stood near one end of the box, holding Penny's small travel case. Across from him, Dravnak waited with a much larger case that hummed with power. Inside, Greg could see the Gorn pacing, back and forth, ready to fight. Are both students ready? Professor Zix asked from her place by the control panel. Greg and Dravnak both nodded. I will now go over the rules, Professor Zix said, her voice reaching everyone in the hall. This is a test of hunting skill, not just killing power. The first, blood drawn, will end the match. We are not here to watch needless harm. She looked at both students. You may now place your specimens in the test area. Greg went first. He opened his small box and gently tipped it so Penny could walk out into the big test area. The tiny spider paused for a moment, then moved toward one of the climbing sticks. Dravnak went next. He pressed a button on his case and the front slid open. The Gorn stepped out, its scaled body low to the ground, its eyes fixed on where Penny had gone. It let out a hissing sound that made students in the front rows step back. The match begins now, Professor Zix announced. The Gorn started to move right away. It used its nose to follow Penny's path, moving with surprising quiet for such a big creature. It could climb partway up the sticks when it needed to, using its sharp claws to grip the wood. Penny didn't run or hide. She moved up to higher places, staying just ahead of the Gorn. To Greg, it looked like she was testing the bigger creature, learning how it moved and how fast it could climb. The Earth specimen shows good space awareness, Professor Zix noted. It is using the 3D space. Well, the Gorn was getting angry. It made more hissing sounds as it tried to follow Penny up the climbing sticks, but the spider was too quick, always staying just out of reach. Then Penny did something that made the whole room gasp. She climbed to the very top of the highest stick, and then she jumped. But she didn't jump away from the Gorn. She jumped right at it. "What is it doing?" a student yelled. "It's going to die." But Penny wasn't jumping to fight. As she fell, she let out a thin line of silk. She swung down like she was on a rope, passing just over the Gorn's head, too fast for it to snap at her. "Amazing use of silk as a movement tool," Professor Zix said, her body glowing brighter with excitement. Penny landed on another stick and quickly climbed back up high. The Gorn roared in anger, turning to follow her. "She's making it tired," Grega said to Lena, who stood next to him, wearing it down. For the next few minutes, Penny kept this up. She would jump, swing, and climb, always staying just out of the Gorn's reach. The big beast was getting more and more tired and angry. It was using too much energy trying to catch the quick spider. Then, when the Gorn paused to catch its breath, Penny made her move. She dropped down on a silk line right above the Gorn. Before anyone could see what was happening, she landed on the back of its neck, at a spot where the scales were thinnest. The Gorn let out a terrible cry that made the clear walls of the test box shake. It tried to reach Penny with its claws, but she had already jumped clear and was back up on her high perch. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Gorn took a step and stumbled. It tried to walk again and fell to one side. Its legs stopped, working right. "The Earth specimen has used venom," Professor Zix announced. "The Klaxian beast is now partly stopped." The Gorn lay on its side, still breathing but unable to move. The hall went completely quiet. "The match is over," Professor Zix said after a long pause. "The Earth-jumping spider has defeated the Klaxian Gorn by first blood and predatory skill." As Greg stepped forward to get Penny from the test box, he could feel every eye in the room on him. No one was laughing now. Greg stood by the test box, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on him. The room was so quiet he could hear the soft hum of the air system. Then all at once the silence broke as students began to talk in loud, excited voices. "The venom won't hurt the Gorn for long," Greg explained to Professor Zix as he carefully picked up Penny. "It should wear off in about an hour. Jumping spiders use it to stop bugs, not kill them." Professor Zix nodded, her body glowing with what Greg now knew was excitement. "Most interesting. The chemical makeup must be quite different from anything in Klaxian biology." Medical robots moved into the test area to check on the Gorn. It was still breathing fine, just unable to move its legs. Dravnak stood stiffly nearby, his forearms tight at his sides. Greg walked over to him. "Your Gorn fought well. It's very fast for its size." For a long moment, Dravnak said nothing. Then he looked down at Greg with all four of his eyes. "The spider won fairly. I did not think such a small thing could be so tricky. It wasn't quite friendly, but it wasn't the anger Greg had expected. Maybe there was hope for better understanding after all." As Greg left the main hall with Penny safely in her travel box, students moved out of his way. Some even nodded to him with what he guessed was new respect. No one was laughing now. Lena caught up to him in the hallway. "That was amazing. I can't believe she took down the Gorn like that." Greg smiled. "I knew she could do it. Jumping spiders are built to punch above their weight. They have to be, to live on Earth." "What happens next?" Lena asked. "We go to class just like normal," Greg said. "But maybe now people will listen when humans talk about Earth life." The next few days brought big changes. Students who had never spoken to Greg now stopped him in hallways to ask questions about Earth spiders. Some even wanted to know about other small Earth animals. What could ants do? Were bees really as smart as some texts said? Did Earth really have tiny bears that could live in space? Even the teachers seemed to see Greg differently. In his xenobiology class, the teacher asked him to talk about how Earth predators had evolved to be so good at hunting with small bodies. Earth's gravity is stronger than many worlds, Greg explained to the class. That means our animals had to get very good at using less energy, and with so many different animals all trying to eat and not be eaten, the small ones had to get very clever. The biggest surprise came 3 days after the match. Greg was eating lunch when Dravnak sat down across from him. The big Klaxian set his food tray down with care. My Gorn has fully recovered, Dravnak said. No lasting harm was done. I'm glad to hear that, Greg said. How is he doing? He is changed, Dravnak said slowly. He now checks high places before moving into a new area. He has learned from his loss. Greg nodded. That's smart. Good hunters learn from every hunt, win or lose. Dravnak leaned forward. I wish to know more about earth venom. My people have always focused on strength and size in our war beasts. We have not thought much about chemical weapons. It's not really a weapon, Greg said. It's a tool. Spiders use venom to stop their food from running away. They're too small to hold prey down with just strength. A tool, then, Dravnak agreed, but a very good one. My war teachers would be very interested in this. Greg felt a bit worried about where this was going. Jumping spider venom isn't dangerous to humans or most big animals. It's only meant for small prey. But it stopped my Gorn, Dravnak pointed out. A war beast bred for fighting. The mix of your venom must be very different from what we have in our part of space. Before Greg could answer, his wrist pad lit up with a message. Professor Zix wants to see me in her office, he said, standing up. We can talk more about this later. As Greg walked away, he couldn't help feeling that he might have started something bigger than he meant to. He had only wanted to show that Earth life was special. He hadn't thought about how others might want to use that knowledge. Professor Zix's office was near the top of the main academy building. When Greg arrived, the door slid open on its own. Come in, Mr. Collins, Professor Zix's mind voice called. The room inside was strange, with no chairs or desk. Professor Zix floated in the middle, her see-through body glowing with swirls of blue and green. You wanted to see me? Greg asked. Yes. News of your spider's win has spread beyond the academy, she said. The Galactic Council has sent a message. They are interested in learning more about Earth's small predators. Greg felt his stomach tighten. What kind of interest? Scientific, mainly, Professor Zix said. But I must warn you, different species will see different uses for such knowledge. The Klaxians, for example, are always looking for new war tools. Penny isn't a weapon, Greg said. She's just a jumping spider doing what jumping spiders have always done. I understand that, Professor Zix said. But others may not see it that way. The fact that such a small creature could defeat a war beast has made many take notice. Moved closer. The Council has moved up Earth's review for full membership status. They now think your world may have more to offer than they first believed. That's good news, isn't it? Greg asked. It is, Professor Zix agreed. But it also means more attention. Some will want to learn from Earth. Others may see it as a new place to get weapons or tools. Greg hadn't thought about this. He had only wanted to show that Earth belonged at the Academy. He hadn't planned on changing how the whole galaxy saw his home. What should I do, he asked. Continue your studies, Professor Zix said. Show them more of what makes Earth life special. Not just its weapons or tools, but its balance. Earth has had life longer than many worlds. It has found ways to keep that life going through many hard times. As Greg left the office, his mind was spinning with new thoughts. Penny's win wasn't just about showing off a cool Earth spider anymore. It was about how others saw Earth itself. It was about his home's place in the galaxy. Big changes from one small spider, he said to himself as he walked back to his room. 3 months passed at the Galactic Academy. The story of the Earth spider that beat the Klaxian war beast had spread far beyond the school. Greg found himself asked to give talks about Earth life to groups of alien students. He even got messages from scientists on other worlds who wanted to know more about Earth spiders. Greg's room had changed too. What started as a small habitat for Penny had grown into a space for 5 different earth spiders. Students would stop by to watch them hunt and build webs. Greg spent hours explaining how each type of spider had found its own way to survive on Earth. "I never thought I'd see the day when people lined up to look at spiders," Lena said one afternoon as she helped Greg feed his growing collection. "Me neither," Greg admitted. "But it's not just about the spiders. It's about showing how Earth life solved problems." Greg had started to understand something important. Earth wasn't special because it had the biggest or strongest animals. It was special because it had so many different kinds of life, all finding their own ways to live. One day, Professor Zix called all students to the main hall for a special meeting. When Greg arrived, he saw why. A group of tall, strange-looking aliens stood at the front of the room. They wore formal clothes with many, bright colors. "These are members of the Galactic Council," Lena whispered to Greg as they found seats. "They almost never visit the academy." Professor Zix floated to the center of the room. "Students, we are honored today by a visit from the council. They are here to review our work and see our specimens." The head council member stepped forward. She was very tall and thin with skin that looked like flowing water. "We have heard much about the academy's work this year," she said, "especially about some of the Earth specimens." Greg felt many eyes turn to look at him. "We would like to see these Earth creatures," the council member continued, "especially the small hunting spider that defeated a Klaxian war beast." After the meeting, Greg led the council members to the habitat room. They moved slowly around the room, looking at all the specimens from different worlds. When they reached the spider section, they spent a long time watching Penny and the other spiders. "These creatures evolved naturally on your world?" one council member asked Greg. "Yes," Greg said. "Earth has thousands of different spider types. These are just a few." "And they all use this venom?" another council member asked. "Most do," Greg explained, "but each type has its own special mix. Some stop insects, some just slow them down. None are made to hurt big animals like us." The head council member bent low to watch Penny build a web. Yet this one stopped a war beast. "That was luck," Greg said. "The Gorn's body wasn't used to Earth spider venom. It's like how some Earth people get sick from foods that others can eat with no problem." The council members talked among themselves in low voices. Then the head member turned back to Greg. "Young human, you have shown us something important. For too long, the council has judged worlds by the size and strength of their life forms. We looked for the most powerful beasts, the most deadly plants." She waved a long arm at the spider habitats. "But your Earth has shown us that small things can be just as important. Small lives that solve problems in clever ways. This is valuable knowledge." Later that day, Greg was called to Professor Zix's office again. This time he found the head council member there too. "The council has made a decision," Professor Zix told him. "Earth's status has been changed. You are now being offered full membership in the galactic community." Greg was shocked. "Because of a spider?" The council member made a sound like soft bells, which Greg guessed was laughter. "Not just because of the spider, young human. Because your world has shown us a different way of thinking. Your Earth doesn't just have big, loud solutions. It has small, quiet ones too." "What does full membership mean?" Greg asked. "It means Earth can send more students to our schools," Professor Zix explained. "It means you can trade with all worlds in the council. It means Earth has a voice in galactic matters." "This is a big step for your world," the council member added. "There will be much to learn on both sides." When they left, Greg sat alone in his room thinking about everything that had happened. What started as a simple wish to show that Earth belonged had turned into something much bigger. His door chimed and Dravnak stepped in when it opened. The big Klaxian looked different now. His stance was more relaxed, less threatening. "I heard the news," Dravnak said. "Your world has been given full status." "Yes," Greg said. "It's hard to believe." Dravnak sat down on the floor since Greg's chair was too small for him. "My world has sent me a message. They want me to learn more about Earth life. Not just for weapons, but for understanding." Greg was surprised. "Really?" "Yes." The Klaxian Empire has always looked for strength. We bred bigger beasts, stronger warriors. But your spider showed us there are other paths. Dravnak looked at Penny's habitat. Small can defeat large. Clever can win over strong. That's what I've been trying to say all along, Greg said with a smile. My leaders have asked if Earth would share knowledge with Klaxia, Dravnak continued. Not to make weapons, but to learn new ways. Over the next few weeks, more changes came. Students from worlds that had never spoken to humans before now wanted to study with Greg and Lena. Teachers added new classes about Earth life, and word came that more human students would arrive next term. On the last day of the school year, Greg packed his things. Penny and the other spiders were safely in their travel boxes. They would all go back to Earth with him for the break. Will you come back next year? Lena asked as they waited for their shuttle. Of course, Greg said. I've got so much more to show them. Earth has thousands of amazing animals and plants. Jumping spiders are just the beginning. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them to the Earth transport ship, Greg looked back at the academy. When he first arrived, no one thought Earth belonged. Now, because of one small spider, the whole galaxy was looking at his home with new eyes. Not bad for a tiny spider, Greg said as the shuttle doors closed behind them. And somewhere in her travel box, Penny the jumping spider sat quietly, her 8 eyes taking in the world around her, unaware that she had changed how an entire galaxy saw her home planet.